Hey everybody, this is Michelle.
And this is Julie.
Welcome to A Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mike podcast. What is our podcast all about, you ask?
Well, we're two 50-something women with life experience and, plenty to say.
Which is exactly what we're going to do right now.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, Shelly.
What's new? Is there anything new going on in your life?
There's so much going on right now. So much. Can I share with you about the most amazing weekend?
Please do.
We just had? All right. Well, you already kind of know, but everybody else doesn't know.
Yeah.
So my son, Andrew, the oldest, he has been working on this whole scheme to propose to his girlfriend, Amelia. And we've been doing this for a little while, or he's been doing this, but really we were brought in a little bit later. Anyway, long and the short of it is she was going on a spa weekend with her mother to Austin, which is where they're moving. And she was going to show her mom around. And then it's her 30th birthday. So her mom surprised her and had her sister Caroline fly in from New York. So that was her surprise, right? And then Andrew flew in and for the quote family pictures and for her 30th birthday. And yeah, I know. And then had it all arranged to where there's a photographer and stuff there. As soon as he could see that people were in place kind of behind him at this botanical gardens in Austin, he got down on one knee and proposed to her. And I'm telling you, it was the weirdest, most surreal feeling to have your child like take that step. He's not a child anymore. He's 31, right? But it was so awesome. Her family was there. Yeah, his family was there, and we had just the best weekend. So anyway, looks like I'm getting a daughter. Pretty excited about that.
And so, congratulations.
Yeah, and I'll put some pictures here with the video so you guys can see how adorably cute Barbie and Ken are. They're so cute. So anyway, that was my weekend. They probably don't like it when I call them Barbie.
That's so great. I know you were like really looking forward to it and everything went off without a hitch. So that's great.
Well, with the exception of me missing my flight and Michelle having to bring my wallet to me at the airport.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then having to catch a red eye that was delayed in Denver because of snow. I mean, it's just kind of a comedy of errors. Such a Julie thing to do. But I got there by 9:30 in the morning. And so I was there in time. I was not going to miss that come hell or high water, So there you go.
Yeah.
That's it. You've already been through all that a couple times. Yeah. Anyway, how about you? What have you been up to?
You know what? Nothing's really new outside of taking care of your puppies while you were off gallivanting in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
That kept me busy through the weekend, and I kept sweeping up bark that Cash likes to bring in the house. And, we just kept each other company and it was all good.
Okay. Well, thank you for watching them and keeping him from destroying the house. I do appreciate that. Harlow's asleep right here.
And also, yes, driving your ID to the airport. Let's just say I was very grateful that I was available to run home, find your ID, and bring it to you to the airport. It was kind of an exciting, challenge.
Okay, so all of you people out there that are listening, who has a friend like I do? Because there's not many people that would do such a wonderful, amazing thing on a Friday in traffic. Yeah, she got a bottle of Tito's out of it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have a kind of a good one today. Let's just get into it, right? Let's get into it. Hopefully our volume is sounding a little bit better than we did last week. So that's the thing, you guys. The disclaimer is we're not very techie people. And we're trying to figure this out on our own. I guess you could call us stubborn to some degree. So if the sound is off here, and it's because we're learning. But hey, it's like at least we're getting it out there, right? So the topic.
That's right.
Have you ever heard of quiet quitting until now? I'm asking you, Michelle.
I had never heard of it. I know
you hadn't.
I had never heard of it until you threw it out there, and I was like, "What's quiet quitting?" And then, you just think about the term. And of course, I thought of relationships. I was thinking, which we'll get into that because it does cover that. But when you threw this out, and then I was looking at content to put into it, it was all about in the workplace. A lot of
that's
it.
where it started. Mm-hmm. Well, so when we're talking about quiet quitting, then we're talking about people who are in the workforce to collect the Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins. They're not there they're not there to necessarily do a good job. They're there to do the bare minimum. They're maybe burnt out, maybe not feeling supported, uh, just unhappy really with where they're at, or they might just be kind of ambivalent to what's going on around them and they're just doing what they can to bring home a paycheck. So that is how it started. There was a gentleman, he was actually a recruiter during March of 2020. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, his name is Brian Creeley, Nashville based corporate recruiter. And he had turned a career coach and had posted some videos on TikTok and YouTube in that month, March of 2022, talking about this. And so his obviously direction was related to jobs. And, it's kind of transitioned now into really kind of you see the same thing happening in relationships. It's basically just not putting your all or putting your minimum effort into something that you're having to do. And it's usually something important like bringing home a paycheck or your relationship, which, hopefully is an important thing in your life.
Well, I think as you were talking about some of that, and I was looking at, behaviors of the quiet quitter, especially in a job setting, I just was thinking about myself because it was talking about, a quiet quitter won't necessarily, they're not going to show up early or stay late or go to that meeting that's not mandatory, that kind of thing, which I'm the kind of person, I do all that shit. Like
Yeah, I know.
but that's just the fabric of who I am.
Right.
I'm going to do that just because, and even in the ones where you're just kind of struggling to get through it. So I think sometimes outside of being that person that's just, there to collect the paycheck and doing the bare minimum, I think really some of that has to do with the character of how a person.
Yeah. Or how much they've done this before. And so it just becomes kind of a habit. Like I was talking with this individual who has a pretty lucrative, a high paying job as a manager and overseeing a bunch of other people. And I was talking to him on the phone and he was talking about these TikTok videos that he was watching. And I'm kind of like, aren't you at work? He goes, yeah, but if they don't need me, I just kind of do my thing or I'll leave early or whatever. I'm just like, ew, that's kind of nasty. Yeah. I don't like that. That does not give me a good vibe about their work ethic or about kind of what they're all about. They're more just kind of taking advantage of the company that they work for, or because nobody's watching them because they're in a manager role in that particular case. And but that was essentially the same thing. That person probably will be retiring in a few years, and it's just like, I'm just going to do what I need to do and watch my videos and whatever else he does when he's at work, if they don't need him, quote unquote. And I just thought, there's people like that. We've all had people that we've
all worked with people like that.
Yeah. And having been a manager or supervisor, just like you had been one, you definitely run across that where people are not willing to kind of, flex a little bit, or they get upset about their schedule being, having to be altered from one paycheck to the other when you were working in retail. There's just, a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So the people that were more willing to work with the team, you found were not in that quiet quitting mindset. At least that was my experience. So now I'm in a commission 100% commission-based business. So there's no quiet quitting going on here because it's like, we don't get paid if we quiet quit. That's not going to happen. It's not a business for people that want to quiet quit or just, bring home the Benjamins and not have to work for it. So anyway, I think too, with the workforce being as light as it's been, there just hasn't been a ton of individuals who maybe would fill some positions. I know during the pandemic, it was huge because I know around here, and you probably remember this, but the hourly rates were increased to accommodate some of the cost of living increases. And it was done during the pandemic because people were having so much difficulty making ends meet. And so I think too, managers, whether it be for restaurants or retail, grocery, whatever, were tolerating some of this behavior because they didn't have anybody else to replace the people who were being lazy bones, you know? So that has been kind of, now that's kind of changing a little bit, I think, because
I
there's
think it's
maybe
shifting.
more people entering the workforce, and it's not something like where the employee is doing you a favor by being there, but where you're actually having to work for your position. Obviously, that's not everywhere, but that is something that you see come up more in the research that I had seen come up more. But I think that is a disturbing trend that had started and has transitioned now into the whole relationship thing, like we were talking about, because it's like, well, think about it. If you're kind of, ambivalent to your job and you're just kind of going with the flow and doing your thing, and you come home, maybe you're doing the same thing at home, just living like not really doing anything to better your situation or your job performance or your relationship or, whatever's going on in your life that's important, So,
and those are all things that have to do with also how you're, again, I guess I just go back to how you're feeling about yourself. And again, I'm still thinking of the workplace, but transitioning over into relationships like you're talking about, and the term quiet quitting, when I look back to a relationship, looking back at my marriage, I've used the term that I was silently starting to prepare,
it's
which
kind of the
I
same thing.
suppose is kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get, to this point. It could be in a relationship, it could be in a marriage, whatever it is, really, it could be with anything in life. That could be, the relationship in some kind of social community or church, or, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship, partnership relationship. This can be in so many things. And as like church, as you start to change and grow, and if you're not continuing to feed your soul in the same way in the setting that you're in, those things are going to start to change. You might start to do a little bit of self-reflecting, and as you continue on, eventually it just maybe fizzle out.
Well, and that's the whole thing. It's like, I think quiet quitting is kind of a gradual process with whatever it is. It's not like you're making a conscious decision. You might be in a position where you're kind of trying to feel things out to see if it's something that you even want to do. If you want to move on to something else, or leave a relationship, for example, or leave a job, you just kind of do the bare minimum, and it's funny because I can recall that too in my own, relationship, where I just stopped trying. I just kind of stopped making an effort, and in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I've made all the effort I need to make. If nothing, this is what I remember thinking. If nothing happens, if I do nothing, if I don't do all of the things that I feel like I'm doing, will anything survive? Will this relationship survive? In my mind, that's what I was thinking. And so I guess I did kind of quiet quit that relationship too, because at the end of it, I was just like, I'm kind of done. Not going to put any more effort in. And, whether I was consciously or subconsciously doing that, I certainly wasn't thinking about it from this standpoint, but it's definitely what I was probably doing. So why do you think that kind of thing happens let's just go into romantic relationships for a second. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it's some of the stuff that we've talked about on other episodes in regard to intimacy, a lot of the things, because when you look at some of the signs, which we can talk about the signs of that quiet quitting is starting to happen, and you do that self-reflection, like we've discussed in marriages, in relationships, people are starting to get busy. You're in two different places for so much of the time, and all the busyness and all the things that go on in living those two separate lives. If you're not coming together and finding that common ground, continually putting forth that
Mm-hmm.
conscious effort on how things are going to continue to feel good, then that's where things start happening, like the disengagement that I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier, or there's going to be emotional indifference between the two of you.
Right. Yeah.
Romantic
No, that's very true.
disengagement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mentally detaching. I think that's kind of a term that is really what you were just talking about when you
Mm-hmm.
were, reflecting back on your relationship.
I
So,
mean, I think we're all emotional beings, and we're processing things, whether it be, again, work related issues or whether it be relationship related issues. It's kind of the same thing, obviously a little different because we're not talking about romantic entanglements, but
yeah.
uh, for both. But I think that as human beings, we have that emotional the ability to disconnect emotionally without necessarily realizing that's what we're doing, because it might be too painful to do it in another way. And so we just kind of we avoid things, which is directly related to a lot of this. So attention toward things that were important before, you're just kind of not paying attention in the same way, or giving it the same level of priority, that
Yeah.
you might not want to just deal with your partner, or you just might not want to deal with what's happening at work because maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you've got other things going on, but you feel like it's asking too much of you. So you just don't put the effort in. And it's not something that's as
Yeah.
important to you, maybe, as it was when you started. And with relationships, I think that disengagement you were talking about, you end up starting to see the people kind of disassociating in the way that you mentioned and spending less and less time together. Now, some people can say, well, it's good for people to be independent, but is it so good to be independent that you're not connected? Like the line to connect you is so slim that it would be very easy to cut, very easy to just sever completely because there is
Mhm.
not a lot of foundation behind it. So yeah, there's a lot of different components to this, but I
Yeah.
wonder if people really were able to identify what their behavior is early on and go, wow, I think this is where I am. This is what I'm doing. They can make, if they choose to, adjustments to start looking at it from a different perspective. And I think that's probably what is going to be, the real bedrock for a long lasting, loving relationship, is that it's built on small gestures and not big gestures, small acts as opposed to words, or big acts of, gestures and stuff like I mentioned before. And so people have they just get tired. I think they just get tired of just doing the same thing over and over again and don't put the effort into something because they're just tired of it.
I
So
think with the effort and the little things that you do put in, it's important that those things bring you joy and that
yes.
you're not just doing them to check off the box, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and you really got to figure out what some of those things are. It's interesting because as we're talking about this, it's really crossover into more than a couple episodes that we've done uh,
Hmm.
in the relationship aspect. Anyways, I'm thinking of the
Right.
love language episode that we
Hmm.
did, the intimacy episode, that we did, and a lot of those things are going to be what those acts are. And it's funny because last week we were talking about big T and little t in regard to
Yeah.
trauma. And now
Yeah.
we've got the big acts and the little acts. So big A,
Yeah.
little a.
But
But
some of those things, like, we could relate to from, like, trauma acts, like we were talking about last week, little traumas, little things. It doesn't have to be from when we were little. It could be from this, for if I'm talking relationship for a second here. It's like there's something broken. There's something that is cracked that allows this type of disassociation to take place. No one's like, say, for
right.
example, your partner's not calling you on it. Your partner's not saying, "Hey, we need to talk about this. I feel like you're distancing yourself from me," or "I feel like you're not trying to spend time," or "When I
Mhm.
ask you to do something, or asked to spend time together, you find a reason not to. What's going on? So instead, what ends up happening is people just kind of start going and doing their own thing. The next thing you know, every vacation is with your friends. That happened with me. Every vacation is going to, a football game or going to deer hunt or going somewhere else, doing something with other people and not the person who's your spouse. And I have found that with children, that it becomes very, very easy to quiet quit without even realizing a relationship, because if you're not careful, a lot of your time, effort, attention, and everything are placed on those little humans. And in the back of your mind, you're like, well, my relationship's strong, it can handle it. But relationships need constant nurturing, constant communication, constant. And it doesn't have to be like you're in each other's faces all the time, but it has to be where there's some level of connection that you need from that person in that relationship in order to keep it healthy and keep it strong, even though all those other things are going on too, of course, because, we live busy lives. Yeah. We all have people that we're responsible to. So I think it's about making who that person is in a relationship, for example, the priority. That comes first, really, before anything else. Yeah. And that's really hard for people. I know that was really hard for me because I always felt like, okay, we can handle this. We'll deal with our stuff later. We're good. And really, you become not good because it happens over and over again. Then all of a sudden it becomes kind of the practice or the habit that is not the exception, but the rule. You don't even realize it's happening probably.
Yeah. And the communication, as you were saying a lot of that, it just made me think of the relationship that I'm in now. Of course, those dynamics, because it's a long distance relationship. Right. So we've had to really go out of our way to be able to communicate. But I know there's been occasion, as you were talking about one of the points you were making, and I know that I have spoken up and said that before, like, when I don't hear from you, it makes me feel like you're not thinking about me.
Right.
Of course, he would never do that intentionally. But if I don't say anything and I'm feeling that way, it's really important that you speak up and be able to share what that feels like so that the other person is aware, because they might not even be aware. To your point also, like you were saying, sometimes you don't even realize the disconnection is taking place. And sometimes it's not going to be intentional or something that you're even meaning to do.
Yeah. It doesn't take much to get to that point. That's what I've kind of noticed. And so, how people view their relationship, whatever their relationship is, if it's a marriage or if it's your significant other, whatever, how they look at that relationship and the attention that they pay towards it gives you a good indication on probably the depth, the depth of that relationship and how well it's been nurtured over time. So it can withstand little things here and there. But yeah, I know it's funny because you think about like girlfriends, like you and I we could go a month without, okay, that would be weird. But let's just say hypothetically, we could go a month without talking to each other. That would be weird.
Yeah.
Like MB, great example. My friend MB, who lives in Idaho. I see her like every couple of years, maybe. And we are back and forth, sending each other goofy things, texting each other. We call each other. We can literally pick up where we left off. Because it's different. It's a friendship.
Me and my friend Penny, same.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a childhood friend. And you can pick up where you left off. You get caught up on everything, and it's cool. And nobody's feelings are hurt and stuff. But you can't do that with a husband or a wife. I mean, you can't do that in that kind of a relationship because, like, go without talking to you or seeing you for a month and not chatting every day and stuff. It's like, I feel like I would feel disconnected almost immediately. So I remember when we were talking before about long distance relationships, that's why I was like, I don't even know how you do it, because I would have the hardest time. I'd be homesick for that person. I'd want to talk to them. Maybe once a day kind of a thing, or FaceTime with them, or, whatever you want to do. But if there was an end in sight, like I knew it was going to be something that was only going to be 6 months, it was only going to be a year, then I could manage it. But if I didn't know that, I would be like the biggest pest going, okay, what's the next step? What's the plan? I'd drive somebody crazy because I don't want to be in a different place. So it works so well for you guys. It does work. And there is an end in sight, I'm sure. At some point, there will be an end in sight. Where that is, I don't know, but I'm certain it's coming soon. But you've been able to continue nurturing your relationship from a distance and, be each other's best friends from a distance. It's pretty cool. And I know a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
People that are in the military or have to travel a lot for work or, that sort of thing. The military is what comes to mind a lot because you see families separated so much, and that would be so dang hard, I think. So I wouldn't necessarily choose something like that for myself because I need it. I need that person to probably be around me more. But obviously that didn't work for me well with my marriage. So I don't know. We'll see what that's all about. Yeah. With relationships, I think some of it too, this quiet quitting is about, like I was mentioning before, trying to decide what you want your next steps to be. And, trying to decide, do I stay? Do I go? There might be children involved. There might be, no love lost for whatever reason between you, but you're sticking around for financial reasons. Those are all things that, it makes me sad, but that's the reality of what's happening, maybe with a lot of people. And
I know,
so it goes, it kind of goes into the whole other aspect of relationships that we've been talking about in other episodes. We've never quite put it this way, but this is the step prior to divorce, quiet quitting in a relationship.
Yeah.
The step prior to a divorce. Now, not everybody gets to the step of divorce, but this is the step of that. And so with jobs, it's the same thing. It's like, nobody wants some lazy bones working for. I don't want some lazy person working for me that doesn't put the effort in, that doesn't contribute, that earns a paycheck and just does the bare minimum. That absolutely makes me crazy. I've had people like that before, but they were also people in positions that they go home and they're not doing work. They literally punch out and they're out. They don't talk to anybody outside of work. It's a different kind of role, maybe. So, anyway.
It's interesting though, because we need those employees also. I know in the retail space, I needed the ones that were quiet quitters. Yeah, the ones that would go to the meetings, would show up early, would stay late. You have those, but then you got the little worker bees that are just filling in the space, which are those quiet quitter types. There's plenty of them out there.
Actually, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So the parallel with someone in a job, in a quiet quitting capacity, is that they stay because they need to stay. Maybe they hate their job. Have you ever been in a job that you hated? Me too. But I had to stay because I had to pay my rent or I had bills to pay. And so, they're maybe looking for, it's out of necessity. So, depending on what kind of business it is, I guess the face of the company wants someone who is, going to be, putting on a good face for that particular company or brand or whatever. But behind the scenes people, it might not be as prevalent. You might not notice it as much. So anyway, that's quiet quitting. So I'm hoping we're able to have more discussion about this kind of thing in the future. What? I'm being quiet. And we're quitting. Do it really super quietly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
No, it's an interesting parallel. I think, just talking about some of the signs of quiet quitting, especially in a relationship, just be cognizant of that in your own life. If you're feeling that going on, if you're feeling it in your job and it's not an intentional thing, if you're feeling it in your relationship and it's not an intentional thing, raise awareness to that and maybe start asking yourself some questions as to why and start communicating and see if there's anything to, move through that to make it better if it's not what your intention is. So,
well, I think we might have listeners that will hear about this and hear the different components to it, like the work component, like you mentioned, or the relationship component and go, holy shit, that's me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you might bring awareness to them, and maybe that would be a time to do some self-reflection and determine if, what they're doing is really what they're intending to do, or if it's something where they need to make a change, and they just haven't gotten to the place yet where they're ready to do it. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, with that note, you can just don't quite quit, but remember to go check us out on all our socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and now you can not only listen to us, you can see us if you want. Check us out on our YouTube channel, A Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mic. We are out there, and we would love to see you there. Download the episodes wherever you like listening to yours, and, we'll be there.
Okay. So until next time, people, peace out from the brunette.
Peace out.
And the blonde.
All right.
Everybody. Bye.